Yeah, willing and able. DJ Code Red, Saber. We're gonna get this started. Yeah. This is how we starting it. Let's get started, 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 let's get started. Who's gonna start this? We're gonna start this.
Hello and welcome to the WhyWHAT podcast series. You are listening to Trajce, Sara and Alan Girl.
Cause evolve and the need for purpose. Why, what? Let's do our reflections.
There is a current movement in Australia with respect to recognising or elevating the importance of psychosocial hazards in the workplace.
We talked about the potential risk for vicarious trauma in season 1, and to the point where it was considered causative factors leading to suicide. We certainly talked about workplace injury in this case. In season 2, we've even talked about bizarre behaviors and disassociated behaviors from reality, with some argument that there was workplace stress related to this.
And I think what we're seeing in season 1 is we're being forced to look at these issues because there's been a few cases that have run up right up as high as the High Court. And we have to think more broadly about what a workplace is and what the impact on workers is.
And in season 1, I spoke a lot about the need for rest and recovery and replenishment, but that's not resilience. And that's not by any means the only intervention. Psychological interventions can be quite broad, can be quite skilled in helping people identify triggers and helping to reframe situations, or you use the C word, compartmentalize, enabling those boundary settings, those skills training. There's a lot more than just rest and recovery. I'll be first to admit that.
And I think that's where we got onto candor, wasn't it? Because we were talking about workers need to know what the job involves and what the stresses in the job are.
And even so, though, even when there's that level of disclosure, some people don't know how they'll react in a situation. They might try and predict that they'll know that. I mean, think of any relationship. You might disclose whatever historically, and then until you're embedded in that fabric of the relationship or fabric of the workplace, you don't know what's going to be a trigger for you.
So it does go back to that communication. It really goes back to just how you will effectively consult in that setting, and often it's really underplayed or it's undervalued, just the importance of having effective communication. And you start with candor and that whole us against them and the idea of the executive, so management and the worker, that division of labour. That's Marxian stuff. It's 200 years old. We've got to move on.
If you don't have candor, then it's going to become very difficult later on, where you put a worker in a highly stressful environment, whether it's for the Commonwealth DPP looking at difficult pictures, or it's a paramedic going out to the scenes of accidents. You need to talk to the workers at that point in time and say, how are you going? How are you coping? And maybe build up their resilience and all sorts of things.
Talking to them, you actually have to have some skill set. You must have skill set to identify what sort of symptoms might be presenting that could be attributed to psychosocial harm, to stress, to anxiety. Are you looking at people who are angry? Are you looking at people who are shut down, non-communicative when they're normally communicative? Are you looking at people who are drinking more, who are having sleeping disturbances? Are you looking at people who are forgetful, making errors at work? I mean, go through the list that you've got to start to have an understanding about what symptoms you're even detecting. What's your awareness?
Respond differently to the environment because that's the way they're built.
Yeah, their sensory profile. What is their neurological makeup? How do they make sense of their sensory world, and what are their behavioral patterns? We spoke about that in episode 1 too.
In what's consistent in all of the cases across all of the episodes is the effectiveness of the way in which the information is being delivered. So whether or not it's an effective conversation, so whether that consultation could have been handled in a better way. There seems to be a common thread throughout all the cases where the way in which information is delivered and imparted could improve. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these cases that we talk about. So I find that interesting. Forget about the facts. The facts are very interesting, but what's coming through is handling the exchanges. And I think that's a responsibility on the part of management. That's just how it works. But that could improve. That's certainly
and
what's
we have
coming
a
out
duty
of
of care to consult with workers, right? That's
right.
When we discharge our duty of care, we consult with workers. We meet our obligations. And we've talked about you don't have to have a ton of money or resource. You can do this in low-tech ways. High-tech ways are fabulous. You've got access to it, fantastic. But low-tech ways, things like the simulation of events and exploring it in new ways and creating tag teams, if you will, to interchange and role play and make it really exciting and fun. You know, people learn when they're having fun and people learn when they're fully engaged. So giving everybody a role to play within their level of comfort, which was the whole idea of that tag team, being able to put your hand up and say, okay, I'm going to phone a friend for assistance. Phone a friend, right?
Yeah. Well, with the role, I think you brought in the role play tag teams where someone can role play, but if they start to feel uncomfortable, they just pass the role play on.
Phone a friend. I'm Trajce, phone a friend, and Trajce is suddenly on. And then Trajce can't be neglectful. He has to be attentive the whole way this is unfolding because he might be on call at any time. Tap.
Like in wrestling. Wrestling? Do you watch that?
Who's gonna start this? We're gonna start this. Press play and plug in the microphone cable. Next up is the crew willing and able, satisfying your thirst. Come and clean on the verse precisely.
I'll try that again. Let me try. Yeah, that's right. Hang on, let's try that again.
Word up, bro. Beauty, mate.
We're tired.
We need some outtakes.
So, Trajce, in episode 6, we spoke about candor, and you said, hey, candor is a two-way street.
Street, yes. I did, because it is...
That'll do. There was enough.
Did you not hear me say
No, there was enough of a pause.
From before.
Okay, right, let's move on.
Oh my gosh. Episode 7. Now let me find episode 7. Hang on. Episode 7 is... Seriously? You're still going to go with that?
I thought you said straight.
In episode 7, design when we work from anywhere, the built environment. That was our last one where we talked about the Well Building Institute, but then we also spoke about mental health first aid.
In episode 7, Sarah...
In episode 7, Trajce, we talked about work from anywhere, and we spoke about the new accreditation standards from the International Well Building Institute, so that there are standards called Well for residences. They've got the new name that they've decided on, and that'll be released soon, about having those standards for the built environment, 10 design concepts to support well living at home, health and well-being, right? Knowing that you may work from home, so important. And we also spoke about psychosocial health at home, and Alan gave us some really useful insights about the idea of mental health first aid, having limits and boundaries about that level of intervention and the referrals that should be made to skilled psychologists, psychiatric team members, depending on what the issue is, and medical support.
Yeah, that's so important. If you've got a worker who you think has got issues, it's really important that they get qualified assistance.
I mean, you were talking about how are you even going to help people when they're in the home environment, and you went as far, Trajce, as discussing the whole concept of, you know, what do you need at home, and does an employer have a responsibility to help with fit outs or you know, some refurbishment, or not just an office chair. I know what I want, but you said this wasn't allowed. I want a spa. And I want a sauna too. I need a sauna and
bubbles
a spa.
of trouble.
Bubbles of trouble. I want a sauna and a spa. I've already got a place earmarked on the second level of my backyard.
I'm surprised. I thought you would have asked for a bungee rope.
No.
Could have both. Could have both the bungee rope above the spa.
I tell you, been there, done that. I have no desire to bungee again. I just feel satisfied that I've done it once. There you go.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But
is there
a spa
around
I could keep going with.
Around the spa, a slippery floor?
Oh, no, I'd have that properly designed. Thank you. That would be part of the design, right? What do you want at home, Alan? If somebody was just going to say, hey, just happen tomorrow,
I think a spa big enough for at least 3 people.
There you go. And what are you having?
That's right, because you need your instructing solicitor and the barrister, right? Is that why? Because you'd never take instructions.
And the client.
Trajce, what will you design at home?
On your own.
What will you design at home?
Oh, you know, like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Or a nice coffee machine. Because, you know...
We can get you a coffee machine now, really?
Go.
That's all you're after?
Well, work's just got to pay for it. That's all.
Yeah, aim low. Come on, aim higher. And I love the idea of the indoor-outdoor wet kitchen, you know.
Yeah,
you have one of those. I'd love to break a wall down on my door and then make on the kitchen wall and to the deck make that my wet kitchen. Do you guys use that term?
That's doable at your place. You could do
wet
that.
kitchen, dry kitchen, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
some of my Asian friends have that set up. That's just how they operate, where the
You're not going to
the walks, the smelly stuff that all is cooked outside, right? I have a girlfriend that has, not kidding, she designed this in her home. I love it. She's got a terrace home. She's got a kitchen in an open plan, but immediately behind that kitchen, behind a wall, is her real kitchen. So in other words, she has just for quick little coffees that she serves people, but there's no dirty dishes ever exposed. She actually has a wall, a pantry, a second sink, and some...
Yeah, like butlers. Like
oh my gosh, what a smart idea.
Yeah.
Double wave sink protected kitchen from view. Love it.
And you know,
I'm not sure if the employer will pay for that.
Yeah.
In
Especially when I'm my own employer, that's a problem.
in a lot of work kitchens now, you have the hot, boiling hot, and icy cold water.
I love those.
Should you have that at home?
Yeah, except can you get exposure to that boiling hot water? You could at a workplace, though.
Yeah.
I love
They
those.
often have the dual buttons, so you
I have a
press
girlfriend
two
that
buttons to
that
do it.
installed one, and I was like, why was this? It was like $3,000 or something, and I'm like, wow, there's so many places I can spend that money, but it is kind of nice. I do like the instant
Having
hot.
a hot water, yeah.
You know, how first world is that?
I know. Who cares about a kettle when you can have a direct hot water
But spa
in?
or just a hot water tap? You know,
hot water, yeah.
Come
What
on,
is
right,
it?
right.
You guys
Anyway.
have really great aspirations. You all want a coffee machine.
Yeah, and it's all work. It's all work.
That's right. Okay.
Episode 8, we spoke a lot about fatigue, exhaustion, and burnout.
Yes, in episode 8 we talked about fatigue, exhaustion and burnout.
Take us back there, Trajce.
I know we started off dramatically with a serious case involving the one punch, but what came out of that decision was reference a worker who had been doing a 12-hour straight shift. And if you recall, Sara, you provided some perhaps some explanation as to when a person's level of generosity can deplete. And I can identify with that because we all know, when you get cranky or you get short-tempered, it was to reach a point where it ends in tragic circumstances.
Absolutely.
It's just non-returnable. And it is the point of no return. So those responsible for work and those ensuring that the workplace is safe, and that includes, of course, the PCBU as well as fellow workers and colleagues. But if all of those actors in the workplace are mindful of the importance to minimise such an insidious hazard.
And it's not just the hours of work, although that is an obvious and direct association with potential fatigue. It's also the nature of the work that you're exposed to, the physical demands versus the recovery that you have, the emotionally taxing kinds of events or relationships that you have at work that could cause fatigue. It's quite complex. And the reason I caution this is if you're only looking at the hours of work, people think that this is the protections are mitigated or housed just within industrial relations and the work agreements around shift work and breaks. It's not. It's much broader than that. It's a work system again. It's work health safety legislation. What's the nature of the work that you design? What's the job crafting that somebody does themselves to protect themselves? Are you even aware that jobs are being shape-shifting occurring in the job, if you will? And what are you asking people to do, and is it realistic?
And Sara, if you go to the case law, it will confirm everything you've just said.
I love being right, Alan.
We love it. We love that you love being right. We love it a lot. It's true though. Work if it works underwhelming, if it's overwhelming. Unfortunately, the same conclusions can be reached. It's just finding that sweet spot of just getting that balance right at work. You know what? It should be a higher ideal. It should be a challenge. As you say, it should transcend beyond IR, industrial relations. It should transcend beyond work health and safety obligations. We spend most of our time our adult lives working.
That's
and now
right.
we're expected to work longer. We should really explore and
4-day work weeks are being experimented with
They
right
are.
now and evaluated through research. But you mentioned this term, the sweet spot, which to me is like the Goldilocks principle, the just right degree of challenge that you find exciting and not overtaxing.
Who's gonna start this? We're gonna start this. Press play and plug in the microphone cable. Next up is the crew willing and able, satisfying your thirst. Come and clean.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Why Work. You've been listening to Trajce, Sara and Alan. And if you'd like to know more about some of the things we've talked about today, please subscribe, and we'd be more than happy to provide you with information and other things that may interest you. Please be aware that none of the matters we've talked about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work. See you next time.
For the charts, no, we can start to make a girl leave you and break your heart. Never seek the mass appeal, nah. Give the fans something they can take home and feel. Let's get started, 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 let's get started. Who's gonna start this? We're gonna start this. Break off style like it's edible, never uncredible and highly sellable. Barefoot in a skateboard bowler.